everyone, this is Shivani and welcome back to my channel Lit Fun. Today we'll be discussing one of the most talked about authors, and no, he's not an Indian but a Japanese. Yes, you guessed it right, it's none other than Haruki Murakami. And today we are going to discuss his book Norwegian Wood. So without wasting any time, let's dive in. So this book basically starts with a 37-year-old man sitting in the flight going to Germany. And when the flight lands, he hears a background music, and the song that is played is Norwegian Wood. And the song triggers a lot of memories in his mind. It transports him to his past. So you can easily guess why this book is titled Norwegian Wood. Now, why is the song so special to him? Is because it is connected to a dear friend of his named Naoko. So he had a friend Naoko and she loved this song a lot. So a lot of memories are connected to this song. And now let's see, when he's transported to the past, what is the memory that gets triggered. So this guy, very smart question, what is his name? His name is Toru Watanabe. Okay, Toru Watanabe. Please excuse me if I'm pronouncing wrong because these are Japanese names and I'm not very much well versed with them. Anyways, so Toru and Naoko are walking side by side into the woods, and we see Naoko talking about a well which is very dangerous. No one ever sees it, but if anyone falls into it, he or she dies a very slow and painful death. It's dark in there, and she says that it's a death that nobody should ever receive. Later on, as the novel progresses, we get to realize that it's not a real well, but it's metaphorical, and it symbolizes depression. So basically, this novel deals with depression and discusses a lot about patients suffering from depression. So she sees it as a dark well. No one is able to see it, and it's very hard for people to identify whether this person is depressed or not, especially when we do not talk about it much. So she talks about depression, and we come back to the present and we see that author is trying very hard to remember all these details. And he says that now the background, the scenery comes to him very automatically, but he has started to forget the most important thing that had mattered to him a lot once, and that was Naoko's face. So earlier he could recall her face within few seconds, but now it has started to take a whole minute for him to recall her face. So we see that how the memories start to fade with time, and it's just the emotions, it's just the most important words that somewhere stay with us. And why is he trying so hard to remember her is because she had asked him for this promise, and what was it? That he would never ever forget Naoko. So that was the only thing Naoko wanted from Toru, that he should never forget her. And he's in a very melancholic stage because as years pass, as he realizes, as he revisits Naoko's memories again and again, he realizes that Naoko never ever loved him, and whereas he was deeply in love with her. But he's a man of his words, and to keep his promise, he decides to write a book. It will serve two purposes. One, he would have Naoko's description penned down so he would never ever forget her. And second, it was important for him to make an understanding of all his thoughts and feelings, what he was going through. And he says that writing is the best way I'll be able to organize my thoughts and I'll be able to understand my feelings. So he starts writing down this book titled Norwegian Wood. Now let's start from the very beginning, from where the story begins. Okay, so when the story begins, Toru is not even Toru is a teenager. Okay, and he's not 20, and he has a best friend known as Kizuki. So Kizuki is very smart and happening. And who is Naoko? Naoko is Kizuki's girlfriend. Okay, so the three share a very great bond, and Naoko and Kizuki had always been together. They were kind of like neighbors, so from the very childhood they always stayed together, and it was very natural for them to get into a relationship once they grow up. So all these three hanged out a lot, and Naoko went to a girls' school. So sometimes she used to bring a girl uh, to accompany Toru. But whenever that happened, it got really awkward, and slowly and gradually, all the three realized that they were most comfortable in that group of three only. So they started to hang together. It used to get awkward when it was just Toru and Naoko left, because Kizuki was the main bond who connected them together. He was great at conversations and he knew how to keep the conversation going without feeling, uh, without making anyone feel out of place. So things were going great, and this Toru had only one friend, only one person he could call his friend, and that was Kizuki. The life changes for everyone when one day Kizuki is suddenly found dead. He committed suicide. He left the gas of his car open, and in the morning they find Kizuki dead, and it's a great, great shock to everyone. Just before committing suicide, he had a game of pool with Toru, and he was absolutely fine. No one could have predicted that he was going to kill himself tonight. So it comes as a great shock, and it feels as if Kizuki takes away uh, a part, from the heart of Naoko as well as Toru. So he feels dead inside, as if something had died, and he realizes a very, very important thing, that death is not an other world's thing, but death and life are combined together. Death is a part of a life, because Kizuki had died, but his death, that experience, is always going to live with Toru, and it has affected him to such a point that he would never ever be able to forget it, and he would always be living with the dead Kizuki in his heart. He would always be living with his memories, and he says that Kizuki will now always be 17 years old only. So Kizuki was merely 17 when he committed suicide. The life moves on, and later on, very, very far off in the novel, but I think I should tell you right now, Naoko will share with Toru that Keisuke was not always that, that happening and that perfect guy. And that is why Naoko always wanted that Toru should be with them, because Kizuki made an extra attempt, extra effort to always show only his best side to Toru. And that's why she could be relaxed and easy, that now he's not going to have his mood swings, or he's not going to shout or something. So this is what the problem is, that we always try to showcase the best of ourselves in front of others. It's very rare that we express ourselves, we let out our true feelings, and that is very, very important. Okay, that is difficult but very important. Once you start to open up yourselves, once you start to acknowledge your feelings, to show your true self to others and not trying to pretend, that is the symbol, that is what tells us that you are on a right path, you are towards a path of healing. And same case we see with Naoko's elder sister also. Yes, we get to know it later on that she had an elder sister, and the way she describes is absolutely perfect. Like, she loved her a lot, and she was really, really sweet girl, and she never saw her once shouting. So she never ever had mood swings, and when she felt low or when something bad was going on, she would feel subdued. She would lock herself in her room for 2 to 3 days, not eat anything, not talk to anyone, but then she would recover and get along with it fine. And nobody took lot of paid a lot of attention to it, because कई बार हमें भी लगता है ना, रिस्क तो रोज का है, ठीक है 2-3 दिन ऐसे रहेगी फिर ठीक हो जाएगी. And the same thing was it, क्योंकि उसके पेरेंट्स को लगता था कि she was like so mature and she was so brilliant and bright at everything, तो ये तो बहुत समझदार है, इसको इतनी ज़रूरत नहीं है, और 2-3 दिन का है, then she'll get fine. और यही उनकी सबसे बड़ी गलती थी. इट्स नॉट एन अचीवमेंट कि अगर किसी को गुस्सा नहीं आ रहा है, बिकॉज वी ह्यूमन बींग्स आर वायर्ड लाइक दैट. We are supposed to have all these emotions, whether it's of happiness, sadness, or anger, and we are supposed to express it. But people didn't know it back then, and they उसको नज़रअंदाज कर देते हैं, they take it very lightly. And one day the same thing happens. We find Naoko's elder sister hanging towards the window, she also had committed suicide. And for Naoko, it comes as a deep shock when she sees the dead body of her sister hanging. For 2 to 3 days, she does not know how to react. She lies on the bed like a dead person, not eating, not talking, doing nothing but just staring out in space. So you can see that what Naoko's background had been, and how two of the most beloved people in her life had committed suicide. So how that must have impacted her. So this was Naoko. So the life continues, and what both of them do is they leave Kyoto, they leave their town because they wanted to get away, and they move to another place. So Toru's life is shown. He lives in a dorm, and there are some light moments. So we see a lot of weird people, weird boys, and their habits. One of them is Stormtrooper, and he does this lot of weird things, and he's a cleanliness freak. Okay, so he would keep his place absolutely clean, and in the very morning he would turn on the radio and start exercising, and he would jump, and that would cause a lot of sounds and vibrations, and it would disrupt Toru's sleep. So there are a lot of incidents, and Stormtrooper is shown as a very weird and a funny character, but some point in time he disappears, and we never get to know the reason that where has he gone and why has he gone. There is one more character, Nagasawa, and he becomes a very, very good friend of Toru, and they both bond over the book Great Gatsby. So yes, of course, Great Gatsby is a fantastic novel, but not a lot of Japanese people read it. So for them, it was like out of the league novel. So they bond कि अच्छा तुम भी ये पढ़ते हो, and we see that Nagasawa see more things that are in common between him and Toru. And Nagasawa is shown as a rich person, and he's really, really smart, really, really clever. He's going to give the exam of foreign ministry, and he's going to get in it. But why is he doing all this? Only to test his limits, only to see how far he can go. So it's just a game for him, and he has that certain aura that exerts power, और वो किसी से भी कुछ भी काम करा सकता है, and no one can say no to him. Now he has a girlfriend named Hatsumi, and she is a very, very sweet girl, and like deeply, deeply in love with him. So we get to see that Nagasawa is kind of a womanizer. He goes out and sleeps with any random girl. Sometimes he takes Toru with him also. And it's not that he's happy about it. He feels pathetic after that, but it's like a game that he just cannot survive without it. It's like he's testing his powers, कि मैं किसको कितना इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकता हूँ, और मैं क्या क्या कर सकता हूँ, किस हद तक जा सकता हूँ. It's the count is given about 80 girls that he had slept with. Hatsumi knows all this, and they both are unable to understand each other. She feels terribly upset that why am I not enough for you? And Nagasawa is like, you do not understand, it's not about you, it's about me. I love you, but I just cannot do without it. Now you might have your own opinions, you might be able to understand him, you might not be able to understand him, but that's how he was. Unable to stick to just one girl, unable to love someone, because he was wired that way. He was very, very ambitious. He worked hard, he knew a lot of languages, and he was very practical, not at all emotional or romantic sort of a person. We also have one very interesting story about Nagasawa, that seniors and juniors used to fight a lot. So one day he went to the seniors that you won't disturb anyone, and what do they do is they dare him to eat slugs. And he, because he could not back out कि अब तो मुझे challenge मिल गया है and इज्जत पर बात आ गई or something, he swallows down 3 huge slugs. It's a big, big thing and very disgusting one, but he still does it. And that is the reason that everyone respects him a lot and stays clear of him, because they know that this man can do anything. And later, very, very later in the novel, we realize that Nagasawa clears his foreign ministry exam. He goes to Germany, and after a few years, after 2 years, Hatsumi gets married to another man. because Nagasawa was very clear that if you want to get married to another man, go marry. I will not stop you. If you want to wait, wait. But I have no intention of marrying anyone. And though initially Hatsumi feels that I am just going to wait for him because I love him deeply, but we get to know that after 2 years she marries another man, and again after another 2 years she also commits suicide. And so when Nagasawa conveys this piece of information to Toru through a letter, he says that this is extremely, extremely painful even for me. So it's not like he's a man completely without feelings. He feels very bad, but reading that letter, Toru breaks off all connections with Nagasawa, and he never writes him back because somewhere he also was attracted to Hatsumi. She was a great, great girl, and he realizes it very, very far on. And in while they were together, also he warned Hatsumi that you should break off with Nagasawa. He told Nagasawa that you should treat Hatsumi right. And later on, he is seen remembering that someone, Nagasawa or someone should, have uh, taken efforts to heal Hatsumi because she was a great, great girl and she didn't deserve it. So basically, through all these stories, you can see there could be multiple reasons why a person goes into depression. We might feel that everything is fine. Hatsumi married another man. चलो अब नई एक start हो गई होगी. But sometimes this doesn't happen. वो जो एक चीज़ होती है वो हमारे दिल में या दिमाग में कहीं घर कर जाती है, and we like really need a lot of love, a lot of patience from our loved ones to heal it. But in some of the reasons, even then, we find it difficult to get healed, which is the case of Naoko. So what happens is, uh, Naoko and Toru, they bump into each other on a railway platform, and they rekindle their relationship. So initially they did not have much to talk about. So what would Naoko do? She would take Toru along and they would just continue walking. And we see कि after walking for 2 to 3 hours, all of a sudden Naoko would be कि हम ये कहाँ आ गए. मतलब her brain was not in the place. She was completely lost. उसको पता ही नहीं होता था कि वो क्या कर रही है क्या नहीं कर रही है. So this is what they would do on Sunday. They would meet and just keep on walking and walking and walking. And Naoko would hardly utter a few phrases. She found it very very difficult to speak. वो अपने thoughts को properly convey नहीं कर पाती थी. Words, sentences तो बिल्कुल ही frame नहीं कर पाती थी. So they would talk very less, but they would constantly meet each other and they would just walk. Toru definitely gets attracted to her, but there was nothing as such from Naoko's side. Then on her 20th birthday, Toru visits her, and they cut a cake, and God knows what happened to Naoko. All the memories comes flashing, or whatever it was, she feels, very, very lonely and vulnerable, and she cries and she cries and she cries a lot. And eventually, they make love, and Toru stays there for the whole night. After that, we see that Naoko moves from there, uh, and Toru is left heartbroken and shattered and in a lot of doubts कि ये कहीं मैंने कुछ गलत तो नहीं कर दिया. So he writes a letter to her hometown कि अगर Naoko वहाँ नहीं भी होगी, so they will redirect the letter to where she is living right now. After a few days, he receives a letter and he gets to know that Naoko has been admitted into a kind of a rehabilitation center. They call it sanatorium, but it's kind of a rehabilitation center. So Naoko says that she was thinking of it for a long time, like to get away from this world because she could not bear it. And now she's getting therapies and she's living amidst nature, and it's very nice in there. And she also gives him the address that you can visit me sometimes. So Toru goes and visits Naoko over there. So there is a perfect schedule set for everyone, and there he meets Riko. Riko is yet another very, very amazing character. Although she is a patient, but she has been living there for 7 years. So it's hard to tell whether she is a patient or staff. And she teaches people guitar over there. Okay, so Riko is very interesting character, and Riko uh, is a bond between Naoko and uh, Toru. and she understands both of them really really well, and then she tells her story in turn. So she also had a very great story. So yes, we had a lot of characters and we have their stories. Rico is one of the most important characters, kind of central, so please listen. So she was a great girl, great at playing piano. Okay, she was very very talented, and everyone would be like, wow, Rico plays such a great piano, and wow, oh my god, she's going to do something great and all that stuff. So all her life revolved around piano. She got so much popularity because she was a great piano player. One day before a competition, suddenly what happens that her little finger stops working. No matter how hard she tries, she could not make it work. She visits doctors, but they could also not find anything wrong with her body. The nerves and everything were correct. Maybe it was a psychological problem. She was taking a lot of pressure, so the doctors advise her to take a leave for some time and not play piano. So she goes to her grandparents' house and everything, and after a few days the finger starts working, but she feels as if she has lost something from within. That zeal, that energy to perform had been lost. And then all of a sudden everything collapses, because उसकी जो भी popularity थी, जो भी world था, that revolved around piano. And now she was not any longer that hot shot or that piano player, and she would see that जो लोग इतने talented भी नहीं थे वो भी first second prize जीत रहे हैं, and she would feel really really bad. Then she would feel the eyes of society, the her parents disappointment कि अब तक हमारी बच्ची जो थी वो इतनी एकदम amazing थी, पर now she is nothing. So ये सब चीजें सोच सोच के something snaps within her, and she kinds of loses it, and she has to be admitted into a mental asylum. So she had been admitted into a mental asylum already once. She recovers and comes back, starts teaching students piano, but of course, she is not at all satisfied. So you see, when you are doing something great, you are at your peak, then you have this performance pressure. And when you lose all of a sudden everything, then you are obviously dissatisfied with your life कि मैं कहाँ थी और मैं कहाँ आ गई हूँ. But life takes turn for Rico also. One of her students, he proposes her for marriage. She is very honest कि नहीं हो पाएगा, see I'm a mental patient and all that stuff, but he does not give up. They see each other for a few months and they finally get married. Her husband is a wonderful man. Okay, he fights with his parents for Rico, and they make their own small house somewhere, and life gets settled. She also has a daughter, and she starts playing piano slowly for herself, not for others, not for audience, not for performance, but only to give pleasure for herself. But then another girl comes into her life. She is very very young. Rico at that point is 31 years old, and that girl is only 13 years old, and she convinces Rico somehow to teach her piano. Everything is going great. Rico is a great teacher, though she doesn't realizes this. She is a extremely amazing teacher. But what happens is that that girl was really really manipulative and a great uh, dramatist, you can say, and she was a lesbian. So one day that 13-year-old girl tries to molest that 31-year-old lady. And although Rico manages to slap her and shoo her away out of her house, she is like really really worried and scared, because that girl says these few lines that you are a lesbian and you will remain one for the lifetime. और इससे उसके माइंड में बहुत सारे डाउट्स आने लगते हैं कि क्या होगा, क्या सच में ऐसा है, मेरी बेटी के साथ क्या होगा एंड ऑल दैट स्टफ. She does not share anything with her husband. Life goes on, but suddenly she starts noticing कि जो उसके neighborhood वाले हैं, उनके neighbors का behavior उसके लिए change हो रहा है. Again, very important point. How people look at us, how people think about us, what they talk about us, it is very very important for us. है ना, हम उसको बहुत ज़्यादा दिल पर ले लेते हैं, जो कि हमें नहीं लेना चाहिए, but it affects us a lot. And as a society also, we should be very very careful of what we are saying about someone. तो स्लोली एंड स्टेडीली वो चीज़ें उसके दिमाग में जाने लगती हैं कि हुआ क्या. एंड देन वन डे वन ऑफ द नेबर्स टेल्स कि उन्होंने ये र्यूमर स्प्रेड किया है उस गर्ल ने कि रिको ने उस लड़के को मोलेस्ट करने की कोशिश की थी, और जब उसने आवाज़ उठाई सो शी स्लैप्ड हर अ लॉट, और इसकी वजह से उसका जो चीक है वो भी स्वेल अप हो गया था. देन शी टेल्स एवरीथिंग टू द हस्बैंड, बट पर वो बहुत ज़्यादा गुस्से में आता है कि मैं बात करने जाऊंगा, बट रिको स्टॉप्स कि नो वन इज गोइंग टू ट्रस्ट अस, आप कुछ भी कर लो, नो बडी इज गोइंग टू ट्रस्ट मी ओवर अ 13-year-old गर्ल. देन शी सेज कि हमें यहाँ से जाना होगा, समथिंग इनसाइड मी इज स्नैपिंग, वी हैव टू गो टू अ प्लेस वेयर नो वन नोज मी. एंड यू नो दैट इट्स नॉट ईजी कि आप एकदम से सब कुछ बंद करोगे और उठाकर चल दोगे. सो द हस्बैंड प्रेज कि प्लीज़ 1 महीना एटलीस्ट मुझे दे दो कि मैं यहाँ से रिज़ाइन कर दूँ, घर बेच दूँ, कहीं और नौकरी ढूंढ के हम शिफ्ट हो जाएंगे. बट रिको इज़ नॉट एबल टू होल्ड ऑन फॉर दैट 1 month, and something in her gets snapped, and she is again admitted into a hospital. At that point she asks for a divorce कि इस तरह से लाइफ कंटिन्यू नहीं हो पाएगी, यू विल बी ट्रबल्ड, आवर डॉटर विल बी ट्रबल्ड, हम कितनी बार घर चेंज करते फिरेंगे. सो आई डोंट नो व्हेन आई विल स्नैप. So she gets a divorce, and now she comes to the sanatorium where Naoko is living, and she has been there for 7 years because she is really, really afraid of going into the outside world, again facing such people, you know, and she does not know how to tackle them. So she lives in the sanatorium. Naoko and Rico have formed a great, great bond. I have already shared all the stories that about the elder sister and about Kizuki and all that Naoko tells Toru. And we are very, very confused about what Naoko feels. Although she does not feel that great, she is very confused that she could never do it with Kizuki, but she was really wet when Toru made love to her, and all this just gets to her head, and she asks Toru to wait for her, and he does it very, very honestly. He stops sleeping with random girls because he wanted to wait for Naoko and keep her memory intact. Meanwhile, in the college, he meets a very, very interesting girl, Midori. Now she also has her own story. She matlab, there are a lot of interesting things about like revolution. So what is this like revolution? We just put a lot of slogans, and sometimes it's a lot of hypocrisy. So that point she brings out that the college students, they continue कि हम revolution करेंगे, हम ये करेंगे, वो करेंगे, and but they just say the big words. उनकी रेवोल्यूशन से कोई भी इम्पैक्ट नहीं आ रहा है. और यही स्टार्टिंग में तोरू ने भी कहा था कि जो लोग ऐसे बहुत ज़्यादा नारे लगा रहे थे कि इंस्टीट्यूशन को बंद करो, ये करो, वो करो, जब इंस्टीट्यूशन वापस खुला तो दे वर द फर्स्ट वंस टू अटेंड द क्लासेस, क्योंकि उन्हें नहीं चाहिए था कि उनकी अटेंडेंस शॉर्ट हो जाए. सो वी गेट टू सी द हिपोक्रेसी कि हम रेवोल्यूशन तो चाह रहे हैं, हम स्लोगन्स लगा रहे हैं, बट एट द हार्ट वी डू नॉट मीन एनीथिंग बाय इट. We feel that Midori is someone who needs a lot of love and who needs a lot of flattering, कि जो सिर्फ उसके लिए काम करे. So she has very weird taste, and she has opinions कि उसकी लाइफ में कोई ऐसा होना चाहिए जो उसके कहने के अनुसार, उसके who could dance around her fingers and who would see her as the most important person. And maybe this was because she never gets that particular love from her parents. Her parents were deeply in love with each other, so much that maybe they gave it less to their daughters. And she was from a very middle class background, living in a very, very small house and owning a bookshop. So she did not have much, but her parents obviously loved her, and they sent her to a very high school where mostly rich girls came. But that was kind of like a punishment to Midori, because everyone would go out to hang and all that stuff, but she would not be able to because she was constantly worried कि अगर इन्होंने कोई expensive जगह चुनी खाने की और तो क्या होगा, because I would not have that kind of money. And she also has a very limited exposure to boys, but we see although she is a little crack in the head, और कुछ लोगों को लगता है कि she is a little different and weird, but she is still very kind, and we see her caring for her father during his last stage. Both his parents were suffering from cancer. Her mother had already died when she is introduced, and now her father was hospitalized. So she was working really, really hard, taking really good care of her father, and soon she falls in love with Toru. बिकॉज तोरू इज अ वेरी डिसेंट गाय, एंड वो जैसे मिडोरी कहती है वैसे ही कर लेता है, उसके साथ चला जाता है. एंड ऑल्दो ही स्पेंड्स जस्ट वन डे विथ हर फादर, बट दे मेक गुड मेमोरीज, और वो काफ़ी हेल्पफुल भी है. सो स्लोली and steadily, Midori falls in love with Toru, and she even breaks up with her boyfriend for Toru. And all this when she knows that he is in love with someone else. But she declares her love for Toru, and he also reciprocates. But things again go downhill when he receives a letter from the sanatorium declaring that Naoko had committed suicide. Everything was going well. We see that she had been shifted from asylum, from that sanatorium to a proper hospital, and treatment was being given to her because her condition had deteriorated. But लेकिन उस hospital में जाने के बाद she was recovering, and she comes back for a day to sanatorium to meet Rico. वो सारी अपने क्लोथ्स वगैरह सब लिख कर जाती है बेसिकली एक चिट पर कि गिव ऑल माई क्लोथ्स टू रिको. बट उससे पहले तक एवरीथिंग वॉज सो वंडरफुल. रिको वॉज श्योर कि ये ठीक हो जाएगी, इतनी अच्छी लग रही है, सब कुछ सही है. और जब वो दोनों सो जाते हैं, दे व्हेन दे गेट टू स्लीप, देन नाउको स्लिप्स आउट. सुबह 5:30-6 बजे रिको उठती है, वो देखती है कि नाउको कहीं नहीं है. एंड everyone starts to find her कि कहाँ गई कहाँ गई. It takes 5 hours for all of them to find Naoko, and when they find her, she was hanging from a tree branch in the woods. Again, why woods are very very significant. तो वही जिन woods में उसको एक वेल नजर आता था जिसमें कोई मर जाए, कोई गिर जाए तो would experience a very slow and painful death. The same thing happens to Naoko. और इट वॉज एवरीथिंग प्लान्ड. एवरीथिंग वॉज प्लान्ड इन हर हेड कि मैं अब क्या करूंगी, बिकॉज शी हैड ऑल्सो ब्रॉट हर ओन रोप विद हर टू कमिट सुसाइड. सो नाको's case is the one that though Toru loved her deeply, she has a very good connection with Rico, लेकिन फिर भी कहीं ना कहीं वो हील नहीं हो पाती. उसको वो आवाज़ें सुनाई देती हैं किजुकी और अपनी एल्डर सिस्टर की, जैसे कि वो उसको बुला रहे हो कि वी आर वेरी वेरी अलोन एंड प्लीज कम टू अस, वी नीड यू फॉर टॉकिंग. एंड इवेंचुअली शी गिव्स अप. वो लव उसको सेव नहीं कर पाता. दिस लीव्स अ वेरी वेरी डीप इम्पैक्ट ऑन तोरू. किजुकी की डेथ से उसने सीखा था दैट डेथ इज अ पार्ट ऑफ लाइफ, बट नाउ ही लर्न्स कि आप कितना भी सीख लो, कितना भी कुछ कर लो, बट नेक्स्ट टाइम यू फेस a situation like this, your beloved dies, nothing, no amount of wisdom is going to lessen your pain. He cuts off with Midori that please wait, I do not know when I will be back. He just packs his bag and goes out to travel. And it's such a हार्ट रेंचिंग डिस्क्रिप्शन कि उसको पता ही नहीं है वो क्या कर रहा है. अपना स्लीपिंग बैग लेके कभी वो पुलिस स्टेशन जाकर रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा है कि प्लीज लेट मी स्लीप इन अ कॉर्नर. एंड समटाइम्स ही इज इवन स्लीपिंग इन ग्रेवयार्ड. ही सेज जब तक मुझे कोई इंसान आकर डिस्टर्ब नहीं करता, आई हैव नो प्रॉब्लम, मैं कहीं पर भी सो सकता हूँ. समटाइम्स ही इज स्लीपिंग इन द सी बीच. मतलब ही इज लिविंग अ मिजरेबल लाइफ. ही डज नॉट नो वट ही इज डूइंग एंड ही जस्ट वॉन्ट्स टू कट कनेक्शंस विद द आउटर वर्ल्ड. बहुत टाइम बाद, बहुत बहुत टाइम बाद ही रियलाइजेस किस तरह से नहीं चलेगा, आई हैव टू गो बैक टू माई हाउस. ही कम्स, लेकिन उसके बाद भी वो किसी से कनेक्शन रिफॉर्म नहीं करता, बस अपने घर में लॉक होकर रहता है. देन वन डे लेटर फ्रॉम रिको अराइव्स कि इसमें तुम्हारी कोई मिस्टेक नहीं है एंड आई एम कमिंग टू मीट यू, सो प्लीज कम टू पिक मी अप. और मैं अब फाइनली सैनिटोरियम छोड़ रही हूँ क्योंकि अब वहाँ नाउको नहीं है, मैं नाउको के बिना नहीं रह पाऊंगी. एंड ऑल्सो मुझे तुमसे मिलना बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. Rico comes, she tries to cheer him up कि you will have to forget, and we see that he was stuck on that one thing कि नाउको का जो था वो फ्यूनरल वो बहुत ही छोटा और बहुत ही सैड था. It was a sad little funeral. He continues saying. So what does Rico do? They drink a lot and she plays 51 songs on guitar. And then she says कि now I want you not to remember that sad little funeral but remember this amazing one that we had. Okay, so it was like she was infusing life into him कि अब मैं भी निकल कर कहीं और गिटार सिखाने, पियानो सिखाने जाऊंगी बच्चों को. And you should also start with your life. Naoko is your past, she is dead. Midori is alive, she is your present. And start a relation with her. Do not hurt her more than you have already done, क्योंकि otherwise there would be a wound that deep that you would not be able to correct it. And we see that he agrees, he seems to to get sense in the head that yes, I am not going to die, I am going to choose life over death. He bids farewell to Rico, and Rico जाते वक्त बोलकर जाती है that किजुकी और नाओको के हिस्से का तुम्हें जीना है, टेक माई हैप्पीनेस, टेक नाओकोज हैप्पीनेस, कंबाइन इट एंड बी हैप्पी योरसेल्फ. But then last stanza, last paragraph is like big twist for everyone. So he phones Midori, ki I want to start the world with you from the beginning, and you are the only thing that I want. But when Midori asks ki where are you, he is unable to tell the location. Okay, he sees everywhere and he says that I am in the dead center of a place that is no place. तो अब इसका क्या मतलब है, समवेयर इट रिफ्लेक्ट्स दैट ही वॉज डिप्रेस्ड. डिप्रेशन इज नो प्लेस, पर अब वो बिल्कुल डिप्रेशन के बीचों बीच उसके अंदर फंस चुका है. बट इट्स द फर्स्ट टाइम ही एडमिट्स दैट ही नीड्स समवन. सो इट्स अ होपफुल फीलिंग दैट मे बी मिडोरी वुड सेव हिम, क्योंकि अब उसने अपनी फीलिंग जाहिर करना स्टार्ट कर दिया. नाउ दैट ही हैज रियलाइज्ड ही इज नॉट अ सुपरमैन, ही नीड्स समवन एंड ही हैज रियलाइज्ड दैट ही इज डिप्रेस्ड. maybe he will be saved and that cycle would stop. क्योंकि पहले क्या था, किजुकी, नाओको और तोरू थे. then किजुकी dies, नाओको gets depressed. then नाओको और तोरू थे, and now नाओको dies, तोरू gets depressed. So we have a high hope that Midori will save him, and of course she must have saved him, because when the novel ends he is about 20 years old. लेकिन नॉवल के बिगनिंग में वो कितने साल का था, 37. That means he had survived. Although readers like to imagine that Toru and Midori must be together, I personally do not feel, because in the beginning Toru was again depressed, trying hard or to cling to the memories of Naoko and pen down everything. And Midori was not a kind of girl who would take likely to it. एक तो वो खुश नहीं था, अगर मिडोरी उसकी लाइफ में होती so he would have been really happy. But starting maybe we see that he's sad and depressed. And second, like I told you, that Midori was someone who would want a guy who is only committed to her, जिसका पूरा ध्यान उसकी तरफ है. She would be patient, she would give everything, but she would want herself to be the most important for Toru. So I personally do not think कि वो long run में साथ में रहे होंगे. But of course for a time being they must have gotten together. Toru must have healed a little bit. Even if he's not happy right now, he is surviving. And that's it. That was the story in Norwegian Wood. So please, if you also see someone who is not happy, try to bring a cheer on their faces. This is the best thing that you can do. And if you yourself are not happy, please share your feelings with your loved ones. Go out, do something that excites you. It's very, very, very important to take care of our mental health as well. So with this, I'll take you a leave. Peace, stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll meet soon. Till then, bye everyone and take care.